All right, everybody, welcome to the Ten-Four Tavern. It is Tuesday, December 9th, the year of our Lord 2025, 7:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a really, really great show tonight. We have Anthony Imperato from Henry Repeating Arms. He'll tell you his great American story tonight, true patriot. With that, Pete, welcome, and good to have you back from your vacation. But we also have a special guest from the Finest Unfiltered podcast, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 8:05 every morning. We have Eric Dim, and there's a reason why Eric's going to be on here today and doing a little bit of introduction. But because of the very patriotic theme tonight, I wanted to do something special that nobody else knows about, but I'm going to do it, and you guys will just play along. There is no reason to stand, although we should. But I think we should start with the national anthem.
To honor America with the performance of the national anthem, 8-time Grammy Award winner, Chris Stapleton.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? Oh, so proudly we hailed at the twilight's gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. Oh, the ramparts we walked were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular amongst birds singing out, yeah, through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Bobby,
All right, guys,
I know why you did that, brother. I know two reasons. One is you're a true patriot, and two is you want to make sure I was wearing pants. Because you know I'm not.
I know. You're probably wearing. I thought you might have been wearing boxers, but yeah, I got my sweatpants on too. So, but I am flying the Detroit Police.
This was a setup, huh? This was a setup. I almost got exposed.
Well, as a Marine, thank you for your service, Eric, and all you did for our country. We appreciate that. And Anthony, I know what a patriot you are today, and I thought it would be fitting to open with probably one of my favorite renditions, even though it wasn't the NFL, who I'm a little lukewarm on these days. I thought it really showed just a little bit, but it did show some of those patriots in those uniforms, bringing tears to their eyes, which the national anthem does to me too. So
yeah, with you, all good.
Yeah. And I was also torn between God Bless America and America the Beautiful as well. And I just couldn't resist Chris Stapleton, and who I've seen in person here at the John Paul Jones Arena in Charlottesville, Virginia. And he was amazing. And yeah, I'm a big fan.
I got some goosebumps. I'm not kidding, man. I got goosebumps. I was at a couple times with the RV. I've been staying, I travel all over, but a lot of times I stay at military bases. And every morning you get to hear it, the Pledge of Allegiance, or you get to hear the national anthem, and I'm like, man, it's awesome. We should hear that every morning. Outstanding. By the way, the chat looks great, man. Got a lot of people here that are usually in the morning.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I wasn't even paying attention to the chat. I'll get to the chat later because I'm going to let Pete and Anthony do most of the talking tonight. However, we do have Anthony Imperato, CEO, Henry repeating his arms, an American patriot. And then for all these nostalgic NYPD guys, you're going to hear some great stories about John Jovino Company Incorporated in Center Market in Lower Manhattan. Some great NYPD nostalgia stories are coming up, and then we'll get into Anthony's career. But before that, everyone knows that this is the tavern. And so, Pete, I believe you and Anthony both have Negronis. Is that true?
We do. We do, actually. It wasn't planned either. But that we do. And I have mine in a U.S. Constitution glass. We the people, I'll show you, in honor of our guest, who is a true American patriot and a damn good man.
Yeah.
Oh, you're too kind. Thank you, my friend.
And then Eric, I think you got Wild Turkey going up there. Is that true?
I am a big bourbon guy. I support Kentucky. It's whiskey, but it's the American way. I love bourbon. I drink it straight up. Okay. I drink it straight up, no problem. I don't need any fancy cocktails. I drink it like a man. And you know, I usually drink this cup in the morning with water. If anybody's it, yes, I have my gold cups in the morning. But now I got my bourbon. So outstanding, Anthony. I'm drinking to you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you.
And there's a reason I have a proper gin martini in the glass, iced up, ready to go. And there's a reason for that. Anthony, before we get into your career and your life, tell us what happened today. Cheers to you.
One of the greatest days in life. I already have been blessed with 2 grandchildren, my grandson Mateo and my granddaughter Aliana. But today my son and his wife brought identical twin girls into the world, Alexandra and Sophia. And so I'm going to get a little choked up even talking about it. Magnificent day. I mean, we started about 3:30 in the morning and you know, you guys know I just got home a little while ago, but thank you up above. What a beautiful gift. So
God bless.
Appreciate that very much.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And it was really good news. And like I said, we, if you couldn't make it today, Pete and I had a contingency plan, but glad to have you here and glad to share the news.
Love
Anthony,
it.
Anthony, that pick is epic, man. That pick is outstanding. Yeah. That's so cool. It's one thing to hold one baby, but now you got 2. You're blessed.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know what you do with 3. Where do you put the third one? You put on your head?
And he has 3 dogs at home too, so it's a very busy household.
Yeah, you're going to find out, Anthony. There's a special bond between granddaughters and their grandfathers. Me and my granddaughter, for example, she likes to fight with me all the time. She argues with me. I'll tell her, be careful. She says, Papa, I am be carefuling. I'm like, be careful. It doesn't even work.
Pete, who wins those arguments, Pete? She wins, right? Who wins? Who wins those arguments?
Oh, she does, man. She's the boss. And she plays my wife even harder than she plays me. But it's great. It's such a great feeling.
As the way it should be. As the way it should be. Okay, so still got a couple of stories and some things to share tonight before we get into the meat and potatoes of Anthony and his great life and Henry repeating arms. But Eric, you wanted to come on today for specifically about how you came across Anthony and meeting him, and then
it's unbelievable. You know, there's only some times in your life where you come across people that are just genuine, that actually want to help you, that actually care, that don't have some type of agenda. And that was Anthony. Anthony, I gotta say, I mean, when Derek was battling cancer and when Derek went into hospice, Anthony had reached out. After Anthony reached out, and man, I'm just trying to just get out the words, and he sent a bottle of holy water from Lourdes, France. And you know, that's supposed to be, if anybody's, whether you're religious or not, it's an amazing place. And just the fact that he reached out and sent it, it was worth any money that I could get at the time. And that's all that we needed, hope. And Anthony was calling me because there was different types of medicine that I was trying to get my hands on at the time. And Anthony reached out and said, any way I could help. And he was reaching out to all his contacts, and he legitimately kept texting me and emailing me, and he legitimately tried to help. And Anthony, I am forever indebted to you, and I consider you a friend. Amazing. I only hope that we get to meet in person sometime soon. And you really touched me and my family. I'll never forget you. And the fact that he did it, and he never asked for anything, never anything on my end. There was no agenda. So Anthony, shout out to you. God bless you. Deserve those beautiful grandchildren. a person like you, and I can't thank you enough. God bless you.
Eric, thank you. I just to a little recap what happened. I read about Eric's story and his family and his son, and okay, here I go. Is someone who served our country, someone who served as a law enforcement officer. This can't be. This can't be. That we got to try to find some help for this man and his family, and it bothered the shit out of me. The story, the pain was, and so I sent the water from Lourdes because a few years ago, I had my own battle with some serious health issues, etc. And but when we knew we wanted to try to find that medicine that was only being used in trials and used in Germany. And we got right to the German doctors and all of that. We were making inroads and trying to make it happen, a Hail Mary pass even. So we gave it we collectively, Eric and I gave it our best shot. We gave it our best shot for his son and his family, and it was a life's moment, not an easy thing, but thank you for those kind words.
I appreciate it. Was amazing, and as I said before, the fact that you didn't have any agenda, and I remember saying to myself with my wife, and I still say it today, I'm like, how do I ever repay? And Tom, I think I told you plenty of times too. How do I ever repay all these people that reached out and offered me money, sent me money, offered me hope, offered me prayers, sent me holy water, extended everything to me, and all I guess I could say is thank you, and I'll never forget. I really these
thank
memories.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's and at the time, and still now, really sometimes what you need is just hope. And even though Derek passed, but the fact that we tried so hard and honored him, and I really appreciate it, and I know he does too.
Yeah, at the beautiful service that you had for your son, if I remember right, it was in New Jersey, correct?
Yeah, Newark.
In Newark, yeah. And, I saw all of the photos of you traveling with him and your wife, and really was just, I got a chance to know him even in those few minutes. What a beautiful, beautiful boy. Really an incredible boy. So, yeah. Whew.
Yeah.
Tough one. Tough one.
You're a special person, honestly. Just the fact that you reached out, you didn't know me.
Thank you. No,
that's why I said that. There's always stories in the paper. What made you look at my story and say, I got to call this guy? And you said, being a Marine and law enforcement. So thank you, our friends and listeners. Most of them are big law enforcement supporters. Some are just police enthusiasts. So I'm sure they appreciate it too. And the chat is putting some great comments here. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Some of the people here, they spend their time watching the morning shows, Sal's show, Executive Perspective, and your show. So thank you so much. I appreciate it to all the people.
Not at all. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, so great. Thank you again, guys, for sharing your stories. We really appreciate that. We have two topics, ICE arrest authority, and then the crime stats, the chief resigning in Washington, D.C. And Eric and John, if you listen with Marlon in the mornings, you talk about crime stats all the time. So, Eric, feel free to hang around for a little bit if you want, certainly as long as you want. But let's hit those two topics. Pete, I'm going to let you lead on these two. So we can bring up the ICE arrest authority, what's going on there, what's been happening in the local law enforcement, local jurisdiction municipalities, and what is the real federal position on this? Why don't you start, Pete?
I mean, look, the federal position is simple. This is the people who come into the country illegally are violating federal law. And you hear these things, oh, it's just a misdemeanor, it's a civil offense. It's still illegal. And I mean, these offenses have been enforced since long before there was a Department of Homeland Security, long before there was an ICE. There used to be an organization called the INS, the Immigration and Naturalization Service. It used to be under the Department of Justice before the Homeland Security Act. And look, man, if you didn't come into this country legally, they would track you down and throw you out of the country. I mean, this isn't anything new. Obviously, some of the problems that I see, obviously, you have these sanctuary cities, and they act like they're doing a favor for these illegal aliens, and in many ways they are. But let me tell you what some of the problems with that are. Tommy, as you know, like Operation Trigger Lock, we used to charge people federally for what started as state crimes. We used to go pick these guys up very often at Rikers Island, or at the courthouse as they were being released. And if we couldn't, we'd have to go hunt them down in the street. And when you hunt people down in the street, there's other people who are put at risk. If you stop in a car and there's 4 people in that car and people are wanted on warrants, guess what? Everybody's going. So if these municipalities would just turn these criminals over to ICE coming out of the jailhouse or coming out of prison, it would be clean. But instead, they're saying, nope, we're not going to do it. They're letting them go out the back door. So ICE is hunting folks down. And what you have is they're in a car with 3 other illegal aliens. Guess what? Everybody's going. Or if you have some U.S. citizen who's going to resist on behalf of that illegal alien, well, guess what? It's illegal. It's a federal crime to obstruct a federal official, even the mailman, in the performance of their duties. So what's happening is you have people getting arrested. So you hear like, oh, ICE is arresting U.S. citizens. Well, they can if you violate the law and interfere with them hunting down aliens. So there's a lot of things that really bother me. But one of the things that bothers me most recently happened in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, where you had the police chief there telling his officers that he's instructing them, if they observe ICE out there doing their duties, to obstruct them. And that if they don't obstruct them, they'll be fired. All right, look, as we know, police organizations throughout the United States, even some that are doing okay, like Fairfax County, where I live, they're having retention and recruitment problems. But could you imagine you're a cop, you come to work, you pursue the job because in your heart, you always wanted to be a great cop. You want to go there and serve in a noble profession. But now you're told, hey, buddy, you got a choice. You can commit a felony and obstruct ICE, or you're going to be fired for not committing that felony. I mean, it's insane. The left has lost their mind. And again, man, look, let's go beyond even the law enforcement part. It's unsustainable to continue to allow people to come into this country, to pay for their housing, to put them on food stamps. The U.S. taxpayers are getting taken to the cleaners here. So it really, I find it offensive. And look, the other thing I find offensive, and to go back to when I first spoke to Anthony, when I first met Anthony, that first meeting back a couple years ago when we sat down for breakfast, we talked about our ancestors coming here to this country. And when they came here, they like my grandfather would not speak Italian in front of us. He wouldn't do it. We're Americans now, American, right? Now he spoke Italian. I thought he was a very quiet man, but he would speak when he was with his friends away from us. You'd hear him like, oh, I didn't know Grandpa could talk so much. But he wouldn't talk in front of the kids and the grandkids because we were supposed to be Americans. The only hint that you would have of his Italian lineage in the house was downstairs in the basement. We all lived in like a house that had several apartments, and then we had a basement where my grandmother cooked for all of us, like 20 people every night. In the corner of the bar, there was a little crossed 2 little flags that sat next to all the bottles, and it was a crossed Italian and American flag. Other than that, his goal was, we're here in this country. We want to be proud Americans. And you see these folks that come here now, they fly flags of their own country, and they demonize the United States. This doesn't work, man. So, I mean, look, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I'm really upset with that police chief in Minneapolis. And again, man, these are laws written by Congress. These are laws signed off by a president long time ago that were enforced for many years. But now because we have a president that people like to beat up on, then, you know, this has become all of a sudden a bad thing, a violation of people's rights. It's nonsense. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Very complex. If you want me to weigh in here, I'm going to weigh in a little bit. Like, look, when you run a company, your main function is being a problem solver. Okay, this is a huge problem here that this country has failed to address for the past 50 years. Okay. So Congress has these laws, and Tom Homan is following these laws, okay, because he's a by-the-book guy. You get swept up in, you know, we grab 5 bad guys, but there's one guy that isn't bad, but he's technically illegal. He's got to go, like Pete says, okay? My purview is the country needs comprehensive immigration reform. If you came here illegally, you committed a crime. That has to be acknowledged. And when someone commits a crime, you normally have to pay a fine. You have to give something back, okay? So if you came here illegally and you never committed a crime, and you could be picking strawberries, you could be working in a chicken factory in the South, whatever, all these difficult jobs that immigrants have taken on. There has to be some way where they could gain some kind of legal status, but pay some kind of price for that back here, like a 1% extra tax, doing community service, something, because you just can't say you committed a crime and now here's a gift. You're legal for no reason, okay? The bad guys got to go. The bad guys got to go. You see, even the New York Times this week have a multi-page article on how bad the Biden administration handled the border situation, where even people on his staff were telling the main group, look, this is really going to be problematic politically and in other ways. And they did this. Mm-hmm. All they wanted to do was, whatever Trump did, we're going to reverse it because it's going to be an FU. So in my mind, Congress has to get comprehensive reform. You're here illegally, but you didn't commit any kinds of a crime. Some path to legalization, but where you pay something for committing a crime. Okay, you give back somehow, and you're bad. And the border has to be, you're vetted. Who are you? And if you're good, we let you in. If you're not good, we don't let you in. And one last thing on this whole Afghan situation, that where when the horrendous pullout of Afghanistan, as we all know, 13 Marines lost their lives. We left $80 billion of equipment there, et cetera, right? Now, of course, there were Afghanis that were siding with the USA during these the fighting with the Taliban and whatever you want to call the other side. The issue is the culture of the Afghani was never taken into account. Tribal Afghanis, okay, they could switch sides. If a guy is given a pencil and an egg, he'll change sides to the. No, I'm serious.
No, you're right.
They will change sides in a heartbeat. So they don't realize how easily a guy like this, who killed 2 National Guard guys, could easily be radicalized and become, go to the other side of the tracks. So these are complicated things, very complicated things, that the recklessness of just opening the border the way it was opened, and the recklessness of letting and not thoroughly vetting the Afghani situation, knowing that it's a complex cultural situation, okay? It's a disgrace. There's blood on the hands of that administration long after those people are gone. Believe me.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
They're either incompetent or they don't care. Like, do you not know? They're not incompetent people. This is intentional. You're either incompetent or intentional.
I think a lot of their supporters, Tommy and Anthony and Derek, is that a lot of their funders, man, are globalists. They want to erase borders. I mean, look what's going on in Minneapolis, going back to Minneapolis, not to besmirch that chief again. You have such a large population of Somalis in that particular city that there's no urge to assimilate. I mean, that's what it's about. You came to this country and you assimilated. We had melting pots, right? Italians lived in certain neighborhoods, moved up to the suburbs, but you assimilated. Now you have cultures that want to come here and retain their culture. So you have these pockets. It's kind of like what's going on in France. We have certain parts of France where the police won't even go, because they basically consider, well, that's the Arabic area. We're going to stay out of that area. That's the Pakistani area. You name the area. So it becomes problematic. So, I mean, now look what's happened in Somalia with all the alleged theft, with what they're saying, up to maybe $16 billion worth of funding. I mean, it doesn't work, man. It doesn't work when you let people come in mass and you move them into one little area and you let them retain their culture without any effort to make them assimilate to our culture.
Yeah. All right. Final thoughts on this topic. Eric, go, and then we'll switch topics.
Yeah,
and we'll
sure.
do one more, and then we get to Anthony.
I think you guys bring up some great flashpoints. So the first flashpoint, what Anthony's saying, I think, is something that we should look at, right? And what he's talking about here is actual reform for people that are already here. So could there be something where people get amnesty or they're grandfathered in? Maybe we put a cutoff date and say if anyone that is here up to this particular date, if they have not committed crime, then they will be allotted a path to become a citizen. I think that's a good start.
Yep.
And then I think that what you're saying, Pete, I think is a fantastic flashpoint. There's a great book I read many years ago, and it's basically if I was a gang member for a day. And there's this young kid, he's from like South Pacific or East Asian, but he could pass for a black kid. And he attends the University of Chicago. And he gets a dissertation, and he's supposed to write a thesis on what is it like to be black in urban America. So he goes into the projects in Chicago. At the time, it's probably up there with New York in the early 90s, just as bad as New York, maybe even worse. And he goes into the lobby with a clipboard, and he starts asking some gang members questions, and they start laughing at him. They say, "Give me this clipboard." And they look at the clipboard, stupid question. What is it like to be black in America? So ultimately what happens is he ends up hanging around these kids for about 7 years, learns all about the gang, becomes their friends, writes a great thesis on it. And what he finds is eventually they started to knock down these projects in Chicago. If you remember, they would knock down housing. And they started to put these people in low-income housing, which they thought was better, and displace them to different areas. And you know what they end up doing? They end up finding these people years later. And they all went to the same neighborhood together. And why is that important? So the reason why I believe this is a comparison, because I read a great book, I don't know if you guys ever read it, Tribe, and how people are tribal. And so these people left the projects, but they wanted to stay as a community. So they were in different housing, but they stayed together. And that's where I think the problem is. When we have people come here illegally, we have a percentage that are legal military age males, but the problem is they're not displaced. The problem is people are tribal, and they find each other and they build these communities. And now we have communities of people that may harbor a large quantity of illegal military age males, such as Tren de Aragua, which is an $8 million operation, probably even more. So we have conglomerates of people getting together. They're not displaced. And that creates an even bigger problem and a threat to our country. And that's where ICE comes in, right? So I don't think that, and I think the problem is we've now put politics over public safety. So instead of having ICE and NYPD or other blue cities throughout this country complement each other, they're competing and they're now in opposition. And the politics has been, let's make crime subjective and let's pick and choose what crimes we find are appropriate for someone to be sent back and deported. A crime is a crime, but we've become so subjective because it's politics over public safety. And that's where the problem is. And ultimately, the mission of ICE is to make sure that this country does not have any domestic security threats. And that's why we deport people. So I think you both brought up fantastic flashpoints that we need to incorporate to actually move this thing forward.
Yeah, that's great, Eric. Thanks for sharing. Spot on. My only two comments are.
I got it spot on.
Yeah, buddy. I'm just trying to keep it tight because we've got to keep moving. I mean, I know we could talk about this for 2 hours, but we want to get to Anthony, and we have another topic that we're going to spend a couple minutes on too. But my only two thoughts is if a law enforcement officer ever saw another law enforcement officer do something that they thought was wrong, they had an obligation to report that. They don't intervene and take action. That is the craziest thing I've ever heard of. That is nuts. And the assimilation stuff that you talked about, Pete, I love immigration. I went to a wedding that was half Dominican, half Jordanian. And I loved the bringing together of the American culture, but then influencing the Jordanian and the Dominican influences, the music, the food, and everything. And that is what's beautiful. But America led that wedding. And that's the important thing. And so when you have these Somalians coming in and they're taking over and they're saying it's our time and we own this city, which they've done, and those photos and videos are circulating, No, it's not. And if we let that happen, it'll be a disgrace. And that's my final thought on that. Let's do DC police chief resigns amid Trump pressure and crime data manipulation probe. This is nothing new. DC has been going on for a while. Chicago, they had an article, big publication, a lot of stuff a couple of years ago called Killing Crime, the squashing. And then for my 40 years connected to the NYPD, which is coming up on my 40-year anniversary next month, January 9th, by the way. So I don't feel that old, but man, does time fly. So those of you who are out there doing the job, soak in and suck up every minute of it. Enjoy it, please. Hopefully you're having a great time and a great career. That being said, we've always heard about juking the stats and doing the stats. And my final thought is, and I've learned this from Mike Marino and Chief Joe Esposito and Joe Dunn and all the great leaders, Gary McCarthy, all the ones that I've worked for who are all so good. They always said the same thing. Like, when you're not taking the crime report, you're re-victimizing that complainant because they're not getting their justice because they were robbed. And we all know about the nonsense that goes on in the hood and in some of these communities, even the good neighborhoods and the larger, higher socioeconomic. When I say good, I mean lower crime. I don't mean anyone's better than anybody else. But what the higher and lower socioeconomic, if you're not taking that robbery report because you, as the cop, think it's bullshit, well, just because their $10 bag of groceries got stolen doesn't warrant a robbery. If it was forcibly taken, it's a robbery. And that's what it is. And that's the end of it. And if you don't take that, you don't give them the time of day, it's a re-victimization of them. They've been victimized twice, once by the criminal and once by the police department. I'll leave you, Pete. I know you had some thoughts, and then we'll go to Eric, Anthony.
I had an informant when I was in Bronx homicide. She was working with us on a bunch of racketeering cases. Black female, lived in the 4-8, got picked up by an Albanian cab driver and brought to the rear of Barnabas Hospital, which is also in the 4-8, St. Barnabas, and was brutally beaten and raped. So she called us because that's who she knew. So me and my partner went over there. We were in the Bronx homicide was in the 4-8 at the time. So we took the 61, went back to the precinct, dropped it off, notified special victims. Special victims comes out. We wrote it up as a kidnapping and rape. She was forcibly brought into a cab, moved to another location, and raped. Obviously assault and other things. Dude, I got ripped over the coals because the lieutenant in charge of the special victim squad at the time met with her, and she said, listen, my boyfriend, if he ever finds out I got raped, he's going to leave me. I can't do this. I don't want to cooperate. So I was reamed for not writing it up as something other than a kidnapping and a rape. And I'm like, well, how would you want me to write that up, Lieutenant? She was forcibly abducted and put into a gypsy cab, taken behind a hospital and raped. What would you write it up as? Well, you could have made a sexual misconduct. I'm like, I'm not doing that. You want to change it? You change it. And I walked out of the room. I mean, it turned into a heated argument, but it didn't help that this was an informant. And I get it. She changed her mind. It didn't change the crime that occurred. And what says that guy didn't do it to somebody else? Part of a pattern. Insanity. But yeah, no, Tommy, that's been going on for decades. Now, don't forget, I left the NYPD in 2001. Almost coming up on 30 years ago. So it's crazy, but it's not a new phenomenon.
I think Tom's muted.
He is. Tommy, you muted yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Marlon. Marlon, I'm taking over Marlon's. Eric, we'll go to you. Yeah. I was trying to calm down the reverb in the back, the echoes. So Eric, we'll go to you, and then we'll go to Anthony, and then we'll start getting into Anthony's life and career. So
I mean, look, let's right now. I think we get the full picture of what's going on, and the NYPD is at the forefront of it. In most recent, the incident that happened in the 109 precinct in Queens, where a family was pretty much brutalized, a car was set on fire. It was just a savage takeover of blocks in a community, and we had a failed police response because there's just no manpower out there right now. But ultimately, if it wasn't for Vicky Palladino and if it wasn't for the Finest Unfiltered, those crimes would still be documented as misdemeanors. And why is that a problem? Well, if they're documented as misdemeanors, then the follow-up is not going to be proper. And when it comes down to CompStat, we're not going to get proper deployment. That precinct's not going to get manpower. No one's going to get blamed for that mishap to actually dial down on what went wrong to actually get the resources there. So it's when we hide crime and we get a mischaracterization, a misrepresentation of what's going on in that area, we don't get the full picture. So if we don't document every trigger, if we don't document every incident properly, we're not getting the full picture. We can't give the proper resources. And ultimately, who gets hurt? It's the residents of that particular area or an entire community. That was an ultimate failure. But that's just one incident that was caught publicly. So if that was caught publicly, imagine what's happening that we haven't seen yet. Every time I used to get a gun in the South Bronx or anywhere I was working, I would say, and the guys would get all excited because we got a legal firearm off the street. Yeah. Every time we get a gun, there's thousands that we missed. Same thing with these crimes.
Yeah, I agree.
Can you give me the really quick, short version here?
Of what happened to Queens?
No, what happened with these DC crime stats?
Oh, okay.
That Tommy was
to
referring
resign
to.
because she was fudging them. It turned out she was fudging them. Some of her command staff was fudging them. So I mean, it's not an uncommon phenomenon. Yeah, she literally just stepped down. Was it yesterday or the day before?
So meaning the crime stats were worse, but they were fudged to show that there was less crime.
Yeah, to make the city look safer, which again is
yeah.
not a good
By
thing.
the way, I was in DC. This is a sidebar story. I was in DC for 5 days because I was at the National Italian American Foundation 50th anniversary gala, which was fantastic, by the way. And I was also at the NRA for a couple of meetings. And in my travels in Uber, every single cab driver, every single Uber driver, I asked them, what do you think about what Trump did with DC and the National Guard? Every single one of them was like, in fact, I had a Somali Uber driver, 28 years he's in the United States, 28 years he has children, he raises children, etc. He did this while he was driving. Thank you, President. Thank you, President Trump. We feel safe in Washington now, believe it or not. And that day that he took me where I needed to go was the same day that they had the No Kings rally in DC, which was comical to say the least. But fudging crime statistics. Since we're talking about crime statistics and crime, just a fast thing, and then I know Tom is going to take us somewhere else. What I read in the Post the other day, is this really true? There are people that could commit 2 or 3 rapes and because they're illegal immigrants, they are let back out onto the street.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
How can that be? So this is the question. If you're a legal citizen and you commit rape, you're locked up. Maybe you'll get bail, okay, but you're locked up. But if you're illegal, you're put back out onto the streets, even though you committed a heinous crime. Is that legitimately how it's going? That's how they implied is that how it's working here.
Yeah, Anthony, in some parts of the country, people get caught up in these whole mindsets. And there's a mindset that illegal immigrants are to be protected at all costs. And I mean, for a lot of different crimes, they're letting go out the back door because they're afraid if ICE finds out they're here, they're going to come and get them. So it's in their mind, their conscience is clearer which is terrible because first of all, if you're marginalizing the victim, right, and you're rewarding the criminal, but it's happening not all over the United States, but in a lot of cities, and I hate to say it, a lot of those cities are blue cities.
Pete, are we crazy? Are we crazy? Have we lost our minds?
Yes. We have. As a nation, unfortunately, until people get their heads out of their backsides, we have. It's a terrible thing. And then, look, the problem, Anthony, and everyone is, look, there's no repercussions for these elected officials to take these stances. And like I was saying before, look, the laws that are being enforced were written by Congress, yet you have congressional members demonizing ICE. They're the people who can change the laws. Instead, they're demonizing the people who are enforcing the laws written by the body that they serve in. It's schizophrenic.
The reason is because it's a political football that helps them get votes. That's all it is, or raise money. That's the problem that we have, honestly, on both sides of the coins. But the fact that you could be a multiple rapist, which I read about, and still go be put out on the streets. First of all, you're here illegally, and then you commit heinous crimes, and you're treated better than Joe Blow, legal citizen who committed a heinous crime.
You want to laugh, Anthony? You want to laugh? When we started this podcast, it's over 3 years now. We did an episode, maybe it was about 2 years ago. It was myself and John and a good friend of us. He goes by Just Right PD, Paul Manicone. We did an episode. It was like more of a tribute to 9/11, but we also talked about staying illegal. And basically what we're saying is you're better off staying illegal. If you come to this country illegally, you get all these amenities. You get food, you get shelter, people take care of you. They don't want to put you in jail because now ICE is coming after you. You're better off staying illegal than actually trying to come through this country the proper way and go on the right path. So that was the theme: stay illegal, and that's the reality. It's almost like we're putting the criminals on a pedestal. And the bottom line, yes, if you came through this country illegally, you're not just a legal military age male or a legal female. You are a criminal. You committed a crime to get to this country. We wouldn't want to just leave our doors open in a house or a community and just let people in. It's the same thing. The only difference is we're now letting them in the entire country. So stay illegal. That's the message.
And the judges
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
let's take a more recent thing and discuss that for about 20 seconds. You had another person stabbed on a train in Charlotte. The individual who did that stabbing is a Honduran national who's here illegally, who was thrown out of the country, I believe, twice before, but at least once. So the judge, in releasing this person who has an extensive arrest history here, who has come into the United States more than once, even after being deported, was, well, I'm going to give him an order to stay off the trains. Well, if the asshole won't stay out of the country after being deported, he's going to stay out of the country. Do you really think he's going to stay off the trains? And now, as a result, we have another person fighting for their life because of an action committed by someone who had no business being in the country. So it's insane.
But Pete, I don't get it. The lefties in these blue cities in the country, they put out these signs: "Don't trespass, no guns." That really works. I thought that works. I'm confused.
The world, you might be too young. Back when they were raping girls in the pools, Anthony, you'll remember this. They were raping girls in the public pools. And a lot of the assailants, unfortunately, were people of color, was in minority neighborhoods. So rather than enforce the law and go out and arrest people, they came up with a slogan, because the kids used to call it whirlpooling. So the slogan was "Whirlpool ain't cool." And that solved all the world's problems.
Oh, that solved all the problems, huh?
Oh my God! Wow.
I thought we protected women, but whatever.
Well, to find a woman, you have a Supreme Court judge.
What is that?
No, but this particular point is the definition of insanity.
Yes.
Come on. Come on. The United States of America, and this is how we roll?
Yeah, it's really strange.
All
All right, guys.
My
We
blood
can
is
go on.
boiling.
We could go all day with this.
No, Anthony, we don't want your blood boiling today. It's a beautiful day for you and your family. So let's do this. If there's any final thoughts, anything that's really important, let's shift. Eric, feel free to hang on as long as you want. Love to have you comment, but if you want to duck out and do your thing, that's perfectly fine too. So let's do this. Anthony, before we get into some of the pictures that you shared for this group, and please, everyone who's listening in today, right now, and in the future on the replays, if you want to go back to some really old NYPD history and some of the things that were going on behind the scenes in uniform and equipment and supplies and firearms and all the things, John Jovino and the company that Anthony and his father and his family ran in Lower Manhattan, Little Italy, New York, will have some really insights that you have probably never heard. There will probably be NYPD historians who've never heard these stories today. So please hang on. So Anthony, tell us where you grew up. Tell us where your family came from, how you got to Brooklyn, and then how you got into Lower Manhattan, New York City, and John Jovino.
Okay. First of all, I don't think I need to tell you where I grew up. My accent says it all. So it's
you have an accent?
Brooklyn,
That's a
New
me,
York.
New
Brooklyn,
Jersey,
New York, and I've got Brooklyn and right down into my bone marrow. But I'm really proud of that. So segueing as a young boy in the mid 1960s, my father would take me to the family's police equipment shop in Little Italy, which is was in business since 1911 and catered to NYPD. And so even as a young man and during the summer, I would go and, you know, like I said to you guys earlier, get a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich and sit with a chocolate milk in front of my father's desk and then watch a sea of blue come into the place and either buy police equipment or talk about what was going on, et cetera, et cetera. So early on, I began seeing law enforcement and hearing about things. And so that the shop was on the back street of the old police headquarters, which was located at 240 Center Street. The street was known as Center Marketplace. It was one of the rare streets in New York that didn't extend north and didn't extend south. You know, if someone wants to take a nostalgia ride with me, okay, this is really a beautiful story. In fact, if there is a screenwriter out there, or if Netflix wants to do a story on Center Marketplace, and in particular what Tommy is showing right now, this is called the Reporter's Shack, which was right next door to my family's gun shop and police equipment shop. Center Marketplace had 6 or 7 gun shops. The Reporter's Shack at number 4 Center Marketplace, Louis Sweet Shop at number 1 Center Marketplace, and Headquarters Tavern on the corner, which was a restaurant that catered to the upper echelon of NYPD. That back street was where they did the photo and fingerprinting, and they'd bring in paddy wagons of the night's catch, prostitutes, drug dealers, gamblers, everything else. They'd be handcuffed. They'd be brought down to the photo lab. They'd be brought down to the fingerprint. So as a 7-year-old kid, I'd sit out on the street and watch this whole thing unfold. Then as I got older and I started working behind the counter and I dealt with police officers, and I really began learning, wow, this is not an easy job, okay? And I began respecting the men in blue for what they were doing. And we sold all of the rookie equipment. And in that era, police officers were carrying revolvers, not semi-automatic pistols like they do today. So it was, and there was 6 or 7 gun shops competing for the same audience during this period. It was really a fascinating place to be. And the Reporter's Shack had all of the city's newspapers, which were multiple at that time. It was a lot more than the 3 papers that we have now, and included the Brooklyn Eagle and the Herald Tribune and other newspapers. The reporters would sit in number 4 and watch the teletype and then get stories through NYPD. So it was really, really a fascinating piece of New York. And there was a famous photographer by the name of Ouija who lived in number 5 Center Marketplace, right above that gun sign. And he was one of the first photographers that was known to go out and capture these crime scenes, like a guy shot and dead on the front seat of his car. And he became famous for those kinds of photos. So anyway, I grew up in this, just really like a very fascinating world. And again, Netflix, come to the door. I'm ready to become the executive producer of a show called The Shack, or whatever you want to call it. So I made my bones working in the retail business, the police equipment business, where I was able to develop my customer service skills, knowing that 3 feet of glass between me and the customer meant everything. Okay. And I never wanted to feel like I was selling you something. I always wanted to feel like I was helping you. If you needed something, great, let's do it. So anyway, my father developed a wholesale police equipment business, and we sold guns around the country. In fact, he sold police equipment around the world, the government of Morocco, the government of the Dominican Republic, the Colombian Police Department, et cetera, et cetera. So I grew up learning some fascinating stuff about law enforcement on on a worldwide basis, and it was really a great education. But this is the bottom line. I was never a police officer, but my blood is blue, period. It's the only thing I could say.
Pete, you're muted.
Mall number 2.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's no doubt about that, Anthony. And look, going back, I know we're talking about Anthony's, his growing up and his career. A couple times, I know for a fact, like we had an agent down in the Tampa area who was breaking up a fight in a bowling alley. He was off duty with his family, got shot in the back of the head, paralyzed. And I posted something about it on LinkedIn, which is how I actually met Anthony, was through LinkedIn. And I swear on my kids, I posted it, took a minute to sit back and just think about what was going on down there, horrible situation. Before I could put my phone down on the desk, Anthony reaches out to me, calls me, goes, "Hey, how can I help?" So when he says his blood is blue, his blood is blue. And I know of many, countless other instances where Anthony has reached out to help law enforcement. So, I mean, I cannot think of a more solid, non-badge carrying human being on the planet that supports law enforcement more than this man.
Yeah. Law enforcement, and thank you for those kind words. Law enforcement is our Guns for Great Causes program. We probably have 50 of the top law enforcement organizations in the country that we support, all of them. Sheriffs, FOP, State Troopers Association, children and families of law enforcement that were injured or got killed on the job. I could go on and on and on. I know we had hoped to talk a little bit about this later. Our Guns for Great Causes program, our main focus is pediatric cancer, but right there with it is the families of first responders and law enforcement in particular.
Yeah. So I want to go back to some of the stories that you just talked about. You made the reference to the reporters and the shack, which is fascinating because when police headquarters was on Center Street, and it's a beautiful building. Anyone who's been down there, it's amazing. It's been turned to condos now. But Eric, you know all about the shack inside of NYPD, and then when they threw those guys out of the shack, right? So any modern
the number 4 Center Marketplace was the original shack. Then they internalized it into police headquarters,
and then they externalized it.
Yes.
Anthony, I can listen to you all day. I love these stories. I love them. Outstanding.
Yeah.
Great story.
Right. So great NYPD stuff. Weave your story, your family building John Jovino and how they acquired that company and then built it. And then let's talk about some of the gun stuff and the lies that was perpetuated against John Jovino in terms of gun stats and trafficking and all of those really cool things. And weave that in because we want to hear your story.
Sure. Yeah. Jovino was in business since 1911, and I closed it in 2021 because after the police department opened up its own equipment bureau, it really became, I kept it open for sentimental reasons. But back in the 1990s, somewhere around there, maybe early 2000s, the New York Times came out with a report about crime statistics and gun traces, in particular gun traces in New York City. And so they published this article, and the report was generated by Columbia University, of course, and it cited our business as being the number 1 source of gun crimes in New York. Okay. First of all, 95% of our customers were law enforcement, whether it was individual police officers or departments, because we sold to departments around the country. So when you're talking about decades of gun sales, and at one point, my father's company was the number 1 distributor for Colt and Smith & Wesson combined when law enforcement was carrying revolvers. Of course, when you go to the tracing information and you have decades of literally millions of guns, your number is going to come up that Well, Jovino was number one in gun traces. What they don't tell you is the backstory. The backstory is that those guns were law enforcement guns for the most part. And like the rest of the world, their houses get robbed. They leave a gun in the car, it gets robbed. They drop a gun somewhere and it's there. And then it's traced. What they also didn't tell you is that a gun trace does not mean it's a gun crime. So this is the New York Times not giving you the whole story. And this is why I've always told my kids and everybody, statistics are misleading because you need the backstory. Give me the backstory and the whole 9 yards. So that was a sidebar thing, and it really pissed me off because, first of all, we were so squeaky clean that BATF bestowed an honor on us in the early 1970s for developing the bound book in an exception. Well, Pete knows what this is, okay? The bound book where our record keeping was impeccable. This is before computers, okay? Right. And so, anyway.
Let me just add some context.
What are you trying to do? Get me riled up tonight?
I think you're already riled up, but go ahead. Let's do it.
This when guns are traced, what happens is ATF traces the gun. It's a phone call. They call the manufacturer. Where was it? Where was this gun made? Where did you ship it? If it was shipped to a wholesaler, great. It'll take that trace to the final point before it enters the markets or the retailer. So Anthony's entirely correct. So I mean, if that gun was, if a cop retires and sells it to another person, it's not going to indicate that. If his gun is stolen, as Anthony pointed out, it's not going to show that. If the gun is lost, it's not going to show that. If the cop sells it to another gun dealer and it's a secondary market gun, and that gun dealer sells it to another person, and then it's used in the crime, it's going to only show that first point where it entered the retail market. So that's very misleading. But for context, when Biden was president, they put out a name and shame list of the most traced FFLs in the country, and guess who was in the top 10? The DC Metropolitan Police Department. They issued their own gun. So it goes to show you how nonsensical all of this bullshit is. So Anthony's entirely correct. And his store had an impeccable reputation with ATF. And I know that because I worked in New York with ATF for a number of years.
So just real quick, Modern Samurai, what, the New York Times or any mainstream media doesn't tell the whole story, say it ain't so. Say it ain't true. So, yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I'm with you. Just quick sidebar stuff with Jovino. It was really a fascinating place. We had a celebrity clientele, whether it was Joan Rivers or another fast story is Kiss. A couple of guys from the band Kiss wanted to buy guns, but they wanted me to close the store because they didn't want to be recognized. And I'm like, look, we're not closing the store, makeup, no makeup, whatever. And they wound up coming in on off hours and getting guns. And whether it was David Brenner bought 2 Colt Pythons because he wanted to keep one on one level of his brownstone in Upper Manhattan and one in his bedroom. He wound up, one of my guys was helping him. We wound up paying cash for the 2 guns. He takes off with his chauffeur, goes back uptown, and he calls me on the phone and he goes, what did I have to do? Come to a gun shop to get robbed? Your guy never gave me my change back. And so I had to drive his, whatever, $57 back uptown and give him his change. But it was really a fascinating place. I sat with Imelda Marcos in the Waldorf Astoria as she picked out 10 different shotguns for her husband's birthday. Okay. And I'm talking about Purdy's and Hollands and expensive stuff. And really, it was a fascinating, part of my life. And like all things, there's reasons why we go through these chapters in life. So anyway,
listen, I gotta sign off, but I just want to say nice touch today, Tom, with the national anthem. Awesome. Pete, it's a pleasure having a drink with you. And Anthony, if you ever need me, I'm not kidding, if you ever need me, you let me know and I'll be there. Thank you to the chat. Like, share, and subscribe. Please make sure you watch Ten-Four Tavern.
All right,
Tom, you
brother.
did a great job.
God bless.
Thank
brother.
you, brother. Take care.
Guys, be good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So you sent me
That's
this
my
picture.
grandfather. Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Go
my
ahead.
grandfather, but that's the counter that I work behind in too. So, yeah, you know what? This block had a special smell. And you know what that was? It was a
Gunpowder.
stew of gun oil, leather, coffee, gunpowder, whatever. It had its own unique flavor. It was really, you knew you were on Center Market Place. It was a fascinating place.
Anthony, a little trivia for folks who are movie fans. There was a movie filmed in your shop too, correct? A very famous Academy Award-winning movie.
Yeah, well, Mean Streets was filmed outside of Jovino.
Serpico, no?
Serpico, who was a customer of my father's, was filmed, and my cousin got a little bit of a cameo role in there. But then we were on a number of other HBO and other TV series and Law and Order. They filmed a few of them there because it was really a cool looking old part of old world nostalgia. And so, these guys that do the set stuff, they saw that. And so we had a lot of fun with some of that stuff. In fact, one time Harvey Keitel came in with his New York City permit, and I sold him a gun, and I decided to do some of the lines from Mean Streets, and he was looking at me like, what is this kid, effing crazy? So
I got a question for you. I circulated on social media 2 photos. One I think was inside of John Jovino, and then the other one I got a direct message, and someone said, I didn't want to blow you up in public, but I think the other scene that you shared was inside the 6th Precinct squad room.
Yep.
And I know that to be true because I can see the cell in the background on the left. And so I just want to stand in a correction, and I'll do it. But if we verify it here, one of the pictures was inside John Jovino, and then the other one was in the 6th Precinct Detective Squad. Is that a true? Do you know which ones I'm talking about?
I don't.
All right, we'll figure it out. I'll get clarification. I will submit a correction.
Me and Serpico
well.
have one thing in common. We both bought Browning High Powers in John Jovino gun shop.
Oh, wow. Look at you. You guys are connected.
1988, many years after he did.
I'll tell you another fast story.
Please.
Mr. Glock, I don't know. Have you ever heard of a gun by the name of Glock?
I know them. I know of them.
Okay. He comes into the store circa 1981 or whatever, and he sits with my father, and I'm a fly on the wall listening to this conversation. And he says, Gaston Glock says to my father, "Hey, I know you're the largest police distributor in the United States. I want to show you, my new firearm." And so he had some photos of it and began explaining, it's a polymer, components here and there, and etc. So, first of all, I never thought bottled water would sell. I never thought I'd pay to watch my New York Yankees on TV. So I've gotten many things wrong. So Gaston Glock goes through this dog and pony show with my father, who was a serious law enforcement police equipment supplier in the United States. And my father told him, "I don't think it's going to sell. It's really not that nice looking, and the plastic and this and that." And so anyway, that was obviously a mistake, as we've all made mistakes in life, but we imported the first 2 Glocks for Glock. He asked my father if he would do him a favor. I delivered those Glocks to NYPD for evaluation. The next day, the New York Times writes an article that NYPD is considering buying a sidearm for their officers that can pass through a metal detector. And
Oof.
like the shit hit the fan over that. And they were like, come and pick up these guns and get rid of them. And I had to go back and pick up those 2 original Glocks.
And
So
did you
just
say that
that's
was
a
in the
li-
80s, 81, Anthony?
It was about, I'd say 81, something like that, 82. Yeah.
So the media's been
I went through my
in
train.
the early
I'm sorry.
80s. No, so the media's consistently been getting it wrong since the early 80s.
Since the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah.
I went, so for context for the audience, I went through my Glock transition course, and New York City Transit got their Glocks, their semi-automatic pistols, before the NYPD. And I have a little story for everybody. There was an incident where William Bratton was the police chief of the New York City Transit Police, and there was a robbery of a jewelry store on Canal Street, and 3 offenders were armed with high-powered rifles and semi-automatic pistols, and 3 transit cops. I'll tell you who they are. It was Max Blythe, Don Dermody, and Junior Pizarro. And we were in anti-crime in Lower Manhattan, and we were on our way EOT. And they walked into that robbery of the jewelry store, and they did a phenomenal job. And I was one of the first cops on the scene for that. I was driving a sergeant by the name of Jay Kopp, the New York City Transit Police, and we recovered on Lake Street, by the way, we recovered we found rental car keys in the pocket of one of the assailants, and we did a canvas around, and we found a car, and there were more firearms tucked in the back seat. So in the event that they got to their car, they were replenishing. And then we took all of those guns, and William Bratton took all of those guns to the MTA board and put all those guns on the table and said, these are what my cops are up against. We're going to semi-automatic pistols. And I don't have all the details and the nuances of it.
Yeah.
That was in like 91 or 92. And by 93, I went through the transition course. So just for our audience, the context of Anthony's early stories of the 80s, and it took about 10 years to come around, and it was transit before. And I don't know, Pete, where housing fit into that. Because I think the housing guys, who was that big guy from the Rockaways from PSA, the tall guy? I went through the transition course with him.
Oh my God.
You know who I'm talking about? It's like 6'8".
Eddie, I can't think of this.
Eddie, yes.
Let me tell you something about him. You want to hear something crazy? He retired from the job. Legendary detective. One of the big players in the Eddie Byrne murder case, by the way. He retired and moved to Florida. He opened up a gun shop. He sold the gun to Omar Mateen. That Omar Mateen used in the Pulse nightclub shooting. So what happened is I didn't even know when he moved down. So I called him and saying, because what happened was we found out he just opened up. And generally ATF won't inspect a gun dealer unless they're open for 3 years. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, man, I know that they're gonna start making all kinds of accusations. We can send somebody up. Because I had another retired NYPD guy working for me, Sal Van Castren, who was an inspector. I said, we can do an inspection of your shop just so that you can cut the media's bullshit out. And he's like, open door, come on up. So they did. They inspected his gun shop. Everything was meticulous, kind of like Anthony's shop. Anyway, the media tried to go at him anyway. And that dude held his own press conference and just laid everything out and basically sent the pack in. But he later sold the shop, and now he runs a gun range down there. So he doesn't sell firearms anymore, but he's still involved in the industry. Great guy, an absolute legend. Eddie Henson. Yes.
That was it. So I went through the transition course with him. So I guess housing and transit, now that I remember.
We had to go to Hempstead, Long Island, because they wouldn't let us shoot there.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
We did. All right, but getting back to Anthony, so finish the story. So you guys do this in the early 80s. The Glocks get sent back because of this bad media story and the lies of omission or intentional. And then why do you never pick up the semi-automatic Glock from that point on? Why does that never play out ever again?
You mean why didn't we take it on as
I mean, why, like over the times, because of the transition from the NYPD?
my father, I guess, maybe left a sour taste in Gaston Glock's mouth. I don't know, but and then he was actually very friendly with the gentleman. There's a guy that really put Glock on the map. His name is Carl Walter, and I saw the infancy of this thing from Gaston Glock coming into New York before there was even one Glock sold in the United States. So I was there for the very beginning of it. Glock would not be Glock if it wasn't for this guy that was hired, Carl Walter, that became his main guy that went to agencies all over the country, worked his butt off, and began convincing those agencies to buy their firearms.
Wow.
And I think the bridge was burned, honestly, in that, my father had rejected, and so we never got it. We never got it back as a part of his lineup. So anyway.
Okay, so walk us. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pete.
No, go ahead, Tommy. That's fine.
No, walk us through. So going into the 80s, into the 90s, and then the closing of the shop. Walk us through that, and then somewhere inside of that era, you start manufacturing a firearm. Is that correct? Do I got that right?
Yeah. To be honest, at some point, my father lost his way, and we had several years of some tough financial problems that I fought off as best as I can, and it lasted for several years. And then it got to the point that either I needed to do something else with my life, and so lo and behold, I took out a home equity loan of $140,000 in 1993. And I started this little company called Colt Black Powder Arms Company, where we assembled and finished guns for Colt under a licensing agreement. They're Civil War era guns, 1851 Navy, 1860 Army, the 61 musket, all of that. And so I rented some space in Gowanus, Brooklyn, and we started with about 7 or 10 people. And Gander Mountain was one of our customers early on, and we really built this little business to where it was moderately successful, and that allowed me to fund the startup of what became Henry Repeating Arms in 1996, 97. And so it's 30 years.
So that's pretty fast, from 93 to 97. So you had a good run, right?
Yeah, Colt Black Powder stayed in business until about 2005. And then I was just too busy with Henry. And I just said, shut down the whole Colt Black Powder line, and Henry became the, dominant work thing in my life. But I was juggling both companies at that time, and so day by day of I never thought I was going to get rich quick, and it just became nose to the grindstone and treat people better than they expected to be treated, and with that formula worked. We worked hard. We had great people. We treated our customers very well with extraordinary customer service, like a lifetime warranty, a personal guarantee that if you took your wallet out and you bought a Henry and you weren't happy, you're going to get your money back. And we treated our employees right, and everybody in between, vendors, distributors, dealers, etc. So business is all about relationships, and so the foundation of the relationships are your customers and your employees. That's where the Brooklyn Bridge, the two things that hold the bridge up, it's your customers and your employees. But then there's everybody else in between too, and so you just want to be able to earn respect, be trusted, be honest, work hard, and it works out. It worked out. It's just it's a formula. It's a formula that works. So I'm proud of the fact that I know that we have treated people right, and that when they spent their money, they're happy with what they bought. That's the key. That's the. I could be selling salt shakers. Doesn't matter. People took out their wallets to spend their money on a Henry. Thank you. We want to make sure you're happy.
And look, as firearms go, they have an amazing reputation. And I'm the proud owner of one myself, a Henry Bad Boy 38 357. Very special thing to me. In fact, my kids are already fighting over who's going to get it when I die, which kind of upsets me a little bit, but I understand the sentiment there. But I know, Anthony, you also, like last time we sat down in person, you were dealing with a little bit of a hardship because you're a loyal guy, which is one of the really charming things about you. And you had to make a decision because you did a lot of your manufacturing in Bayonne, and you had to move a lot of that manufacturing to Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken. And I know that was weighing heavily on you. How did that work out?
It weighed heavily on me for sure. You know, some of those people worked for us for over, for 20, 25 years, etc. And we have 3 facilities in Wisconsin, and Wisconsin became our headquarters at a certain point. And so it just became problematic. New Jersey taxes were very high. Real estate taxes were high. Corporate taxes were high. We were shipping parts back and forth between Wisconsin and New Jersey. Management was coming in, and it just became, a business decision. I could have changed things a long time ago, but I didn't because of the loyalty to my employees. So we did the best we could with our severance packages and all of that, and we wound up. It took about 6 months to move everything out to Wisconsin, and that's what we did. So now the company is headquartered in northwestern corner of Wisconsin, in Rice Lake, Wisconsin, and in Ladysmith, Wisconsin. We have about 350 to 400,000 square feet of manufacturing space. And we have a lot of state-of-the-art technology. We have, robotics and automation, and, it's a lot of cutting metal. You could look at, General Motors, as an example, or Ford. They have so many parts made from somewhere else being shipped in, okay, and they're more of an assembly house. Henry Repeating Arms on any given day could be making 900 different components. 900.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
We cut metal. We do all kinds of processes. It's legitimate manufacturing and a combination of state-of-the-art technology with what I call in the hands, because when you build guns, you have to have it in your fingertips too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It intrigued me. Like when you first reached out to me, I was like, Henry Repeating Arms. We had never met before. And I'm like, okay. So then I look at your profile and I'm like, wait a minute, this guy lives in Manhattan. And I know Henry Repeating Arms is most famous for lever action rifles. So I'm figuring whoever's running that company, Montana or Wyoming or something. So I'm glad we met. But I will say I was intrigued. And then I later learned, because I think you folks are most famous for lever action rifles. I would say legendary in that regard. But, and you showed some of the pictures. I don't think a lot of people realize that you make those survival rifles and that you guys also make revolvers. So, I mean, it's really quite an extensive catalog that you folks have. How do the other rifles sell? I know probably the most popular rifles that sell for you are the lever action rifles. But how's business with the other stuff?
Yeah, we're the leading lever action manufacturer, even though we haven't had competition for several years because we knocked everybody out of the box, and the gun industry went into a terrible slump a couple of years ago, and what was selling, our lever actions was still selling despite the slump. So everybody else decided to jump into lever action. So I got a gang fight on my hands right now. But like you said, we make the survival rifle. We make the a 9mm Homesteader ranch rifle, which can use a Glock mag, a Sig mag, a Smith mag. We make single shot rifles. We make single shot shotguns. We make a bolt action 22 for kids. So we have over 300 SKUs, a ton of variety, every kind of caliber from 22 up to 6.5 Creedmoor, something for everybody in the family. And since we're on this, I'm not shy about saying go to henryusa.com, order your free catalog. You'll get 2 decals and a list of dealers in your area. And by the way, if you're interested in Henry, or if you want to talk about Jovino in the old days, you can email me. I'll give you my business email address. You may get an automated reply, but I will eventually get to you. It's Anthony@henryusa.com. Anthony@henryusa.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But you know what, Pete? I love what I do. Okay.
Well,
I travel the country. I've met every kind of person, every walk of life, from every small town in America, 30 years of this kind of stuff. And the joy that people have with our product, whether it's a grandfather taking the granddaughter to the range on a Saturday morning, or a couple buddies going out hunting with their Henrys, whatever it is, it's just, we make an emotional connection with the consumer. That's the beauty of what we do. Yes, we make a product, but we really, we touch you and you touch us. That's the beauty of my business.
Well, I'll go a little further than that too, Anthony. A couple things. Number one, as Tommy knows, and the people who've listened to the show many times know, I'm a huge fan of leadership. I think leadership isn't something; it's everything. And it affects how a company, it affects how a department, it affects how things operate. And I've had the honor of dealing with your company. So you're obviously a gentleman. I think the world of you. But your staff also, talk about customer service. They're just good people, very attentive. And, my interactions with you on the side from being friends is I've had some instances to deal with some like charitable stuff. And just dealing with your team has always been just top shelf. So I want to thank you for that. And I know you wanted to talk about it. We touched on it, but you wanted to talk in greater detail about the kids program that you have and maybe some of the other charitable stuff that you're involved in. So I want to, give you an opportunity to open up the floor.
Let me jump in here real quick before you go into that, Anthony. So just so you know, this is not a plug for Anthony. We're doing this because Anthony is a true patriot and a supporter of law enforcement, military, and Americans. This is not paid. Full disclaimer, we're doing this because we love the American story, the love of the United States of America as an immigrant family, and then bringing manufacturing into the United States. And what's the motto, Anthony, for Henry?
Made in America or not made at all.
Okay, so
and tell me, I did not know that Anthony and Eric had that interaction before. So talk about small world and good people. Good people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, everyone on the bottom, Anthony@henryusa.com. The email is ticker floating by. We had henryusa.com was the website as well. So do that. So go ahead. While you're talking, Anthony, about the causes, Guns for Causes. So bring that up and go ahead, intro that.
Sure. So Guns for Great Causes started over 20 years ago. When I got myself back on our feet financially, I just felt this sense of gratefulness, like, okay, I got out of that dark place and we're going to survive and all of that. And I felt compelled to give back. And so I started this Guns for Great Causes program, which started with a little event at the Ronald McDonald House and now has blossomed. The focus is on pediatric cancer, individual cases where families can't afford the treatments or the travel for treatments. And so there'll be donations to those families for that kind of thing. Then we do outright cash donations to pediatric cancer hospitals, a number of them around the country. That's been our primary focus. But right along with it, like I had said earlier, are families of military and first responders and law enforcement injured in the line of duty, or unfortunately, if they're deceased in the line of duty, and multiples of those organizations in the military world and the law enforcement world that Guns for Great Causes has helped. Beyond that, we focus on Second Amendment rights, wildlife conservation, and the continuing of our outdoor traditions, in particular with youth and firearm safety programs and youth shooting sports programs. So that's what we do as far as being a good corporate citizen and trying to give back.
And Anthony, if I may, I had the honor of helping the situation with Fleola, rather, in getting some firearms that your organization custom made for the 4 Secret Service heroes that protected President Trump after he was shot in Butler. And I know that your company you have tribute models for like construction workers and for other law enforcement organizations. What would someone do if they wanted to have a rifle custom made for their organization or for some sort of charity? Like, just email your company? I mean, how much customization can these folks do?
Sure. We have, there's someone at Henry, her name is Stacy at henryusa.com. She handles these special programs. We call it the corporate editions program. Stacy at henryusa.com. So first of all, we've done a number of law enforcement editions. 100th anniversary of New York State Troopers, 100th anniversary of Michigan State Troopers, Kansas State Police, California Highway Patrol, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. I could go on and on and on. I don't think I could get a speeding ticket anywhere in the United States. We've done a multitude of deployment military special editions where they could put their own artwork, a whole bunch of corporate editions. For example, there's a company in the agricultural world called Pioneer Seed. 2026 is their 100th anniversary. We did all of the guns for them as an example. So we love that because this is something that is really important to the customer, and it becomes a badge of honor.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
So talk to me about the detail of these inscriptions and engravings. I'm going to show a couple of the photos that you sent. I just showed the New York State Police right here, the State Troopers 1917. So I guess their anniversary was 2017.
Correct.
And now we have Dayton up here. And you were saying everything is in-house. Like how tough, like how hard, how complicated is this, Anthony?
It's not that complicated. Where it becomes complicated, to be perfectly frank, is when you have 11 guys trying to decide the artwork that should go on there.
Right.
And so
People, man,
everyone, no, put the badge this way, turn it sideways. No, I want the old badge that we used to have, that kind of a thing where it can delay a project. But we've learned after a certain amount of time how to rein that in. But we've made so many friends, doing this kind of work, really all over, all walks of life across the country. So it's really been, it's always a lot of fun. And in fact, we have coming out starting now this week is, of course, next year is America's 250th anniversary. And so we have a line of, America 250th tribute editions. We just announced the American Cattleman tribute edition. And so we try to look at deserving constituencies and show them some respect. You know, the American farmer, for example. The American farmer feeds the world. These guys, you know, get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and they're plowing the fields and, you know, getting their hands dirty, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's been one of our best sellers. And yeah, we love selling guns, but we also love tipping our cap to those people at the same time.
I think that's what makes you folks different than a lot of the other manufacturers out there, frankly. You know, I mean, again, it's a tribute to your patriotism.
Well, you know, Pete, we're a people company, hands down. Okay, we're not afraid to reach out and touch you. You know, Eric is a perfect example. You know, a lot of people would be like, you know, I don't want to pick up a phone and call someone or reach out. Or look how I reached out to you. That's what Henry Repeating Arms does. You know, literally, we want to reach out and touch you. That's what we do.
Yeah. Well, it's funny.
Good.
No, you go.
I was going to say, I want to bring attention to this one because this is an LAPD and Shootin' Newton. I'm very familiar with Shootin' Newton, the district in the police in LAPD. I know some folks that used to work there. Shootin' Newton. So look at this. Look at the work and just the personalization of a specific area just within LAPD. So it's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so
and this is the bigger.
I'd love to hear from any of these, whether it's law enforcement or corporations, if they're interested in putting their logos, their themes, their anniversaries on one of our legendary American-made rifles. Let's do it. Yeah. You know, they use them for dealer rewards, employee rewards, company milestones, that kind of thing. Now, don't forget, we also have a whole bunch of guns, firearms that are used for practical purposes, whether it's a 22 for plinking or a garden gun that we make to, get rid of snakes and rodents in the barn, to varmint hunting, to 50-yard hunting, to long-range hunting, all of that, cowboy action shooting. So we cover a wide gamut, and a lot of our guns now are used for home protection. Our Homesteader 9mm, some of our tactical lever actions, that kind of a thing. So yeah. We're much broader than just the cowboy world.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm going to go personal on you, Anthony. I have a 12-year-old. I have two boys, older, 31, 32, and he's a cop in DC, and he's been on for 6 years, going on 7. And I have another son who was in the military who's now working for a defense contractor in the DC area in the Beltway. But I also have a 12-year-old at home. And although he's been introduced to handguns, he's been introduced to 2 revolvers, a 38 Ruger and a 38 Smith & Wesson, the 5-shot snub, and then the Ruger Police Service 6. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to introduce him to maybe a 22 or maybe that varmint rifle. So what do you suggest for not only me, but the audience, like bringing a child into what should be their first firearm? And I love the lever actions and the nostalgic engraved stuff. So how do we start introducing a child into long guns?
Okay, well, our beginner gun is something called the Henry Mini Bolt. It's a stainless steel single shot bolt action rifle with fiber optic sights. That's for like the 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kid that has no firearms experience. Beyond that, we start going into our youth lever action rifles in various configurations, or our single shot rifles and shotguns in the youth version. So we have a variety of youth guns, and we are not afraid as a firearms company to promote the fact that we support youth shooting sports programs. I can't tell you how many of people in the gun industry are afraid to mix the word youth and firearms. Okay. And so we're not going to be embarrassed about it, because I see firsthand the benefits. I go to the range in Staten Island here, right? Saturday morning. You never saw the most disciplined kids in your life like you see at that range. They learn respect. They learn discipline. They learn working with each other, the range master, etc. They follow the rules, all of that. It's really a wonderful, wonderful teaching experience. So we're behind youth shooting sport. We support every single youth shooting sports program in the United States. All of them. We believe in it. We have our selfish reasons. We do, because one day we want that youngster, when he's 45 years old, I might not be here, but I won't be here, but I want him buying a Henry. Okay, because he loved the brand and he learned on it as a kid.
Sure. So that's it's funny that you talk all about that. Probably, and again, I'm not a firearms expert, but I just transferred my safety knowledge from going through all the courses and stuff, and firearms tactics with the NYPD and transit police. And a shout out to the transit bunker squad guys, if they're listening out here, Jay Lynch and those folks. It's really beautiful to watch my son. He has an airsoft with his friends, and I ask the parents when they come over to our property, like I tell them we have firearms in the house, but the ammunition and the firearms are separate. They're under lock and key. The kids don't even know where they are. We built a house and it has a secret compartment, and there's only 3 people on this planet who know where those secret compartments are, outside of the builder. And to watch him go through the safety protocol with earmuffs and goggles and pointing down range and never finger on the trigger and all of those things with these 10, 11, and 12-year-olds with the little airsofts and everything, it's the beautiful thing. So I'm 100% by it, because that's how the accidents don't happen. And the curiosity is gone. It's like, hey, Dad, I want to shoot. Can we shoot? Hey, Mom, can I shoot? And they ask for it. They don't go look for it and find it. That's what I look for, because I have pediatricians where we live ask kids, do you have guns in the house? And then they call the parents in and they go, where are your guns and how are they protected and how are they, like, they intrude on this. And I'm sure you've heard all of this.
Yeah. So, guns get a bad reputation, and it's bullshit. Just like people think that ATF and the gun industry hate each other. The fact that I'm here with Anthony shows that's not the case. There's a respect for each other that goes beyond what the public is led to believe. But no, it's a good thing. And I'll tell you something else too. I mean, I shoot. I'm not the greatest shot, but there's something that people don't realize. Like, oh, the gun is intimidating. There's something almost meditative about shooting. If you go to the range and you're focusing on sight picture and squeezing the trigger the right way, it's relaxing in many ways, because you're focusing so much. It's like I said, it's almost like meditating. So I mean, I hate when people demonize the firearm. Granted, there are evil people out there that do evil things with guns, but don't blame the inanimate object or the legitimate gun owner for those things. You know what I mean? I mean, here we have one of the nicest people I know on the podcast with us today, one of the kindest human beings I've ever met, and he happens to be in that industry. Again, I used to get so frustrated with the media in New York that demonized the industry as people who will sell you 1 gun over the table and then 3 under the table. That's absolutely not the case. It's what they do is important, and it's also constitutionally protected, by the way. But
Yeah.
So Anthony, we're coming up on an hour and 45 minutes. We touched on a lot at the beginning. You walked through a really wonderful life and your contributions to the NYPD and those little interesting stories that people, especially old timers who probably lived through it, who might not have known. And then you carried us through the transfer of Jovino to Brooklyn and then Henry Arms. Anything else you want to talk about tonight before we start wrapping up and go through some stuff?
No, it's been a long day, Tom. Like I said, I started out at 3:30 this morning, so I think you did a wonderful job leading the band. I love the contributions from Eric and my good friend Pete, who I respect and admire so much. No, I think we're good. I'll close with, again, you want to reach me, Anthony at henryusa.com. You want a Henry catalog, go to henryusa.com or follow me on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. I love meeting people from around the country, all walks of life, and good stuff usually comes from that. So, and you guys keep up the good work, and I know we're going to stay in touch.
Yep. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm going to go to you, Pete. Let me just say thank you. Appreciate that. Pete and I, we're doing this. It's a labor of love. We want good people to tell the good stories that need to be told. It's that simple. Pete.
Very good.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Anthony, you reached out to me cold one day on LinkedIn. As Tommy knows, I'm prolific on LinkedIn. That's how I do a lot of my book. And I was like, all right, who is this guy? And then read your profile, was intrigued that you lived in Manhattan and ran Henry Arms, like I said earlier. And I remember we sat down for breakfast, and first we talked about my book, and you were pissed off after hearing what happened out there, which most people are. And then we started talking about family and country and values. And look, I've crossed paths with many, 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 many people over my lifetime, but few did I sit down with and say, something, that's a good human being, man, and I hope we stay in touch. And I'm glad we have. So it means a lot to me that you come on our podcast. I think you're a great person. I am so thrilled that you have these beautiful additions to your wonderful family. And I hope Henry Repeating Arms continues to thrive and do the good things that it does. And thank you for what you do for law enforcement, for the military, and for being just a great American and a great human being. So I am blessed to know you, my friend.
Thank you. Same here. Same here, guys. Same here. Appreciate it. Have a very Merry Christmas. It's around the corner. And healthy, Happy New Year.
Yep. Okay, so we got a couple of house cleaning things. So Pete, your book, go ahead, do that while I'm getting other stuff ready to go.
Yeah, it's a real story about something that happened in Phoenix that should have never happened. Biggest federal law enforcement scandal in the history of this country. Led to the murder of Border Patrol agent Brian Terry, who I'm sad to say his 15th anniversary of his murder will be next Monday. And his family never got the answers they deserved. So I tried to give them some of those answers. And, another thing that since the book came out, one of his killers, the Ninth Circuit, overturned the conviction, and he's going back to trial. So, I mean, it just tells that story, man. And my prayers to the Terry family. And look, I'm glad the book is doing well, because there's an old saying that a hero only dies the last time his name is mentioned. My goal is to keep Brian Terry alive in that regard. So my prayers to the Terry family. God bless them. And thanks for letting me speak about the book, Tom.
Okay, so I'm going to do some wrap up here. So, Anthony, if you've got 5 more minutes after I'm done, we're going to sign out. You'll hear a song. And if you want to stay on for us to debrief, and we can do that and make sure everything's okay on the other end, and anything that you might want us to follow up on. But if you want to leave, just go and do your thing.
I'm ready to. I'm going to sit and eat a dish of pasta now and call it a day. So I'm going to sign off, my friends. Thank you.
Reach out to us tomorrow. Say goodnight, everybody. Anthony, thank you very much. HenryUSA.com. It's on the ticker. Thank you. All right, everybody. I'm going to go through the sign-offs. Pete, any final thoughts? Anything on what we else talked about before I go into this?
No, man. Like I said, Anthony's a good guy. I know we haven't had people who aren't law enforcement or directly related to law enforcement on before. But I mean, like I said, his blood is blue as anyone I know. So I'm just glad he came on. I hope he enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed talking to him. And I hope the folks that watch learn a little something about the history of the early days outside of One Police Plaza at the J. Jovino and Sons.
Yep. Okay, guys. So we're going to do the wrap-ups. So the Sal Greco Show every Tuesday and Thursday, 1:05 p.m. Eastern Time at the Finest Unfiltered. And then we have let's see. I have the narrative here for coming up for. So tomorrow, Wednesday morning, this is going to be Eric, John, and Marlon. Jonathan Glazer, NYPD 2 doctor, canine officer, becomes a medical doctor. So really interesting conversation. Jonathan Glazer with the Finest Unfiltered tomorrow in the morning. And then tomorrow night, we have We Don't Need NYPD Riot Cops, the executive perspective. On episode 42, Ron and Robert, joined by NYPD Inspector Tony Reganella, disorder control specialist, discuss implications Mayor-elect Mondami's plan to disband the NYPD Strategic Response Group. They'll explore how the city will respond to rising demonstrations, particularly the anti-ICE protests, which we talked about at the beginning. Mayor-elect Mondami has taken the initiative of schooling, air quotes, illegal immigrants on how to protect themselves from ICE and vowed to fight for the rights of immigrant brothers and sisters. No mention of illegal or legal, just immigrants. And however, it's crucial to recognize that he should also fight for the rights of all New Yorkers, including his members of his New York City Police Department, which he'll inherit at the first of the year. So please join them. And if you want to continue to follow us on social media, at YouTube at The Finest Unfiltered, you can find us on the podcast section. And then X, Instagram, and Facebook, it's at Ten-Four Tavern. And then Pete and I are most prolific on LinkedIn. You'll find us at Pete Forselli, and then Tom-Joyce- NYPD retired, and then 10-4 Tavern podcast on LinkedIn. So with that, Pete, I think we're done. I'm going to outro. Good night, everybody. Stay safe. If you don't come back before Christmas, please, everyone, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Really appreciate that. We are back next week on 12/16. We're going to have retired Lieutenant, Tom Monahan from Las Vegas PD, he was a homicide lieutenant in Las Vegas PD, worked on the Tupac Shakur homicide in Las Vegas. So Lieutenant Tom Monahan next week, a week from today, for Las Vegas PD Homicide Squad. So thanks, everybody. We're out. God bless.
God bless, man.